All right, everybody. Stocks by the numbers. Welcome back. Quick update here on Take-Two Interactive Software. Ticker symbol TTWO listed here on the Nasdaq. Stock a touch over $166, down a point and a quarter right now, about 0.75% here on the day. Hit a high of almost 169 a share, 52-week high here of 171.59. So we're pretty close to that range. The stock went on a tear since the last quarter. I know technically the company did beat on the top and bottom lines, but in my opinion, I still say overall the company is struggling and technically really won't see a big boost to its revenue and get back on track until that inevitable release of GTA 6, which, that I read that it was delayed. Other people are saying it's not delayed and it's going to be on time. They were supposedly saying they're expecting it like the tail end of 25, but supposedly some insiders are saying that it's delayed and it could not be until 2026. So that's why I could have swore they were saying that it could be potentially delayed. And that's why when the company reported earnings, let me zoom in a little bit. That's why when the company reported earnings here, even though, technically they beat, they had a little bit of a pop here up to about 154, and then it immediately pulled back to 146. So that's why as it was channeling here, I said, in my opinion, puts, because it was probably going to kind of like ride down this trend line and potentially break this support channel it was in, right? Because it was in this upward channel, kind of this trumpet. So I thought it was going to break and kind of just hang out here in like the low 140s. And of course, you know, like the old saying is, we plan, God laughs. But the stock ends up going from 146 to over 166, where it is right now, basically on inline earnings. And again, the potential delay coming from GTA 6. Now, of course, it's not set in stone because supposedly, I guess these are just rumors, but again, this is why I always say that you have to follow the numbers, because when stocks get pumped, in my opinion, kind of for no reason, that's when they can tank and pull back drastically for no reason, if you will, or on some slight negative. So, in my opinion, something like TTWO should really be hanging out at the 140 range. It shouldn't be back up here at the 170 range. But again, that's just my opinion. But if we go back here, my reasoning is, again, the tail end of 22 going into 23, if we come down, we can see $28.5 billion market cap, right? So we're trading over 5x annual revenue. Company sitting here with an EPS of minus $22 a share. The profitability fell off a cliff. And obviously the net margin percentage drops down negative here, and we can see that revenue plateaued at 5.35 billion from 22 to 23. And of course, the net income dropped negatively, but more importantly than that, if we go back here again, tail end of 22, we had the initial drop here off of these earnings. This was a miss on the top and bottom line. Then the stock basically immediately rebounded what it lost and got even higher than where it was. Then these earnings come out. They missed again on the top and bottom line, but the stock just continued to go higher for the F of it. Then we come out here. They missed on the EPS side, but they beat on the revenue side. But I thought, stocks mostly get pumped because of how profitable they are, right? So if we just came off two big misses, but we missed again on the EPS side and had a slight beat 3% on the revenue side. I don't know, like in my eyes, it shouldn't have really moved too much, but it went up again, right? And then we ran all the way up to 150 plus. Slight pullback here with these earnings. Again, another miss. So over these last four quarters, the company only beat once on the revenue side and missed on all of the other metrics, right? And then we come back here, tail end of 23 now, and we can see that was a good beat on the top and bottom line, but that pumped the stock up even more after it was being pumped up after it was missing earnings, and that took it all the way up to the 170 mark. And then this was the last time I did an earnings prediction video on it. I said, in my opinion, puts, right? Because I mentioned all of the things I just mentioned, and the stock was too high, and I felt that they were personally going to continue to struggle and the stock should drop down. Boom, it ended up actually dropping down to about that trend line I pointed out, 142. Then it rallied back up immediately, started to pull back here, and then started to run up on anticipation of these earnings. And then again, technically the company beat on the top and bottom line, and the stock absolutely exploded, going from 146 to 166. So I mean, overall, in my opinion, I still say in the short term, stock should easily be 10-15% lower than where it's currently trading. But, it is what it is, and we're not always 100% accurate. But in my opinion now, after this run-up, I would have to say, in my eyes, I still stick to my guns, and I still say that I personally believe TTWO puts in the short term, maybe over the next couple of weeks. But we spoke about this, and in the long term, we know this is video game developer, right? And they have the Grand Theft Auto franchise. That's like their flagship franchise, and it's like one of the best-selling games of all time. I believe GTA 5, I think, is the recent one, right? GTA Online, whatever, surpassed 200 million copies sold. There was only like 2 or 3 other titles in the history of gaming that sold that many copies. So obviously, we know that's their bread and butter, right? So any catalyst relating to the Grand Theft Auto franchise is either really going to pop or really going to drop the stock. And that's why, again, I don't know, maybe you guys can let me know in the comment section what you heard, but again, I could have sworn that they said that it was going to be slightly delayed and we weren't going to see the GTA release until fiscal year 26. And that's why I said, in my opinion, that chances are the company has a very good chance to continue to struggle throughout 2024 until gearing up near that release in 2025. Now, it's supposedly slated for fall of 25, I believe, but, we have an article like this talking about the PC release for GTA 6, but it also hints that the release might be delayed. Supposedly, it's saying, insiders are saying it's delayed going out to 2026, so instead of 2025. So let me know what you guys heard, what you read, or what date is on your radar for this GTA 6 release, because I feel like I'm kind of getting mixed information here, and I'm not exactly sure when the release date is actually going to happen. But what also grinds my gears is I'm personally, I do some light gaming myself, but I personally prefer PC gaming, right? Because you can essentially do almost anything on the PC, and with the console gaming, you're much more limited in my opinion. So I haven't purchased like a PlayStation or an Xbox in many, many, many years. But I understand that a lot of people are big on the console side, but I just don't understand how the PC releases of a lot of these new titles, they're either delayed or they just never happen. And we can see here that Take-Two CEO hints GTA 6 will eventually come to PC, though no official announcement has been made. Expect a PC release after the console launch, likely in 2026, right? So that's what I mean. That's why in my mind, it makes absolutely no sense. And you release the game on PlayStation and Xbox at the tail end of 25, but sometime in 26, you'll make it available on the PC. I don't understand why it's not just released across all platforms. And, another example is, you guys know I like mixed martial arts. I've been watching the UFC the last couple of years, and same thing with the UFC game, right? I remember Dana White saying back when UFC 4 came out, now they're up to 5, but when UFC 4 came out, he was like, oh, the PC gamers are busting my chops, I got to make it for the PC. And then what happened? UFC 5 comes out, and it's on PlayStation, it's on Xbox, and it's not on PC, to my knowledge. And it makes me laugh because it's literally one of the only few games on a console that I personally would like to play, and there is no way I'm spending $500-$600 on a console and then buying the game just to play one title that I want to play on console. You understand what I'm saying? And that's why I feel the same way with GTA 6. Now, personally, I'm not too hyped about it, but I understand, it has a big following. It's a very popular game. But like GTA 6 right now, currently I'm a PC gamer. So, you're telling me that when the hottest title that you make is coming out, I'm not going to be able to play it for like 6 months, and everyone's already gonna be putting in hundreds and thousands of hours into the game. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me, and I'm sure there are programmers out there who can say, talk about the issues of porting it over to the PC and whatnot, and I appreciate that. But at the end of the day, we're talking about AAA titles, multi-billion-dollar corporations, right? If this was an indie release, I can appreciate it. The scale at which these companies release these games, it really shouldn't be an issue in my opinion. But yeah. Didn't really mean to go off on a tangent, but I just brought up the UFC game as a comparison. But we can see PC gamers have been eagerly waiting for news about GTA 6 coming to their platform ever since Rockstar Games announced it for PS5 and Xbox. I have to assume, not to go down the rabbit hole, but I have to assume there's some sort of kickback from the consoles, because again, something like this, GTA 6, literally your hottest billion-dollar IP, and you're telling me it's going to take months to get it on the PC. but it's, you know, exclusively coming out on PS and Xbox, and same thing with the UFC title. So, you know, they can say whatever they want to say, but, you know, in my opinion, sometimes you do have to go down that rabbit hole and connect the dots yourself. But anyway, the lack of PC announcement has led to much speculation, but recent comments from TTWO CEO Strauss Zelnick suggested a PC version is likely on the horizon, albeit not immediately, right? That's what I mean. They have no urgency for the PC market, which blows my mind, because everyone and their brother basically built a custom PC recently or bought a PC build, and, you know, everyone's upgrading their video cards. The PC gaming market has absolutely exploded, like, over the last, like, 7, 8, 10 years, right? Even if you look at companies like Nvidia, AMD. So that's why I don't understand the lack of urgency to port these games to PC, but going off on a tangent. But absence of a PC announcement, not something that could be set in stone. Only have the lack of the announcement, I suppose. Continuing lack of the announcement. Rockstar has an approach platforms which we've seen before. They will make more announcement in due time. I do believe the right strategy for our business is to be where the consumer is, and historically what this company has done is address consumers anywhere they are on any platform that makes sense over time. Despite some fans hoping GTA 6 would buck this trend, seems more likely to continue. PC gamers urge them to be patient, give the studio the benefit of the doubt regarding its release strategy. GTA 6 currently slated for fall of 25. However, internal issues at Rockstar have sparked rumors of potential delays into 2026. This is what I'm saying. This is what I could have swore we read when this company released earnings. Yet for some reason, we pumped the stock from 146 now to over 166. And now we're down to 165.5. I mentioned, in my opinion, puts in the Discord just a while back. Shout out to the crew in the Discord. But again, Discord free to join. Link in the description of every video. But despite these concerns, TTWO determined to stick to the 25 release window. PC players might have to wait till 2026. So, overall, in general, you know, I already said, in my opinion, chances are long term the stock is probably going to get up to over 200 once these, like, pre-sale numbers come in and the game is actually released. I know someone mentioned, let me see here. Shout out to our buddy Brendan, who left a comment recently talking about you could potentially see a trailer at the Xbox event this weekend. I mean, we know a lot of those things are out of our control and we don't know the schedule of the company. But I will say that the stock went on a really big run, in my opinion, not really justified. But if we look at one of these trend lines here, we can see going from the bottom of November 8th, 22, connecting to the bottom of October 30th, 23, coming up and across, we can see that the stock ran up basically almost every day since earnings and is now above this trend line here, but again did reject off of a pivot point of about 167.34. I'll mention in a minute. Now the stock is slowly pulling back. It actually just dipped below the 20-day moving average. I'm looking at the 1 month, but technically below the 20-day moving average, and could come back below this resistance trend line that it just spiked up above after really going on a run here over the last couple of weeks. The RSI potentially a little overextended, which is why now on a pullback we have to look, it looks like about here, maybe 164.20, but in my opinion it should technically pull back here to this fib level of sub 161, and maybe like back here, back to the mid 150s. And I have to be conservative because, again, realistically, in my eyes, it should be down here. But we have to take, you know, what we have and deal with what we have and, you know, try to analyze each situation day by day. So even though I might not personally agree with this run-up, again, a realistic pullback to 160 and potentially the mid 150s, in my opinion, I think that is a realistic pullback, especially after the run it went on. But only time will tell. But if we switch over here, looking at the daily, we can see, look, the RSI overextended here, up here to 80. It just kept going, riding the high, the top Bollinger Band here, potentially forming what looked like a bear hammer maybe on the weekly. I'll switch over to that in a second. But the RSI on the daily still up here at 76. So that's why I'm saying, in my opinion, it's due for a pullback. Mid Bollinger Band coming up on the daily, probably going to get to like 156, 157 if it starts to pull back. So that may be like your low of the low, supposedly, here in the immediate short term. But technically, the stock is still above that resistance trend line. It's still above the 50 and the 200-day moving averages. So I understand if people still say it has bullish momentum, but the RSI does seem overextended in my eyes. MACD flew to the moon, basically. But, you know, what goes up does eventually have to come down for the most part. And we can see the RSI on the weekly up here at about almost 65. And the top Bollinger Band, 167.28. And we had that hard rejection. Now it's sub 166. But on the weekly, over the longer term, this is what I mean. On the weekly, the MACD just crossed to the upside because look at this. The stock has been up essentially for like 2 months straight, maybe more. So, you know, that's what I mean, though. But the entire time on this big run-up, the company technically only reported like 2 good quarters out of, what, 7 or whatever? You understand? That was my initial concern. And the problem is just because they make video games and just because you guys might be pumped about GTA 6 doesn't mean the stock could potentially stay up here, which is why I'm saying if we do have a pullback back to the mid-Bollinger Band or one of these moving averages here of about 150, in my eyes, you can't really be surprised, but only time will tell. But I wanted to show the pivot points as well before I let you go. And we can see that on the weekly over the longer term, we might bounce around and drop back to the 150s, and then we can step back higher and potentially get to this resistance level here of 183.36. However, if we look at the previous pivot point, we can see there's about 161, right? So that's why I'm saying, and you can see that's right where it stopped and then ended up bouncing up off of. So that's why I'm saying, in my opinion, you know, a pullback 5-6 points here back to like 160, sub 160, in my opinion, would actually make sense, especially after this big run up. But if we switch over on the daily, we can see stock, right, had a resistance pivot point here of 167.34, and we can see it actually stopped right there, and then today it ran up above it and then immediately rejected and has since been pulling back and selling off. So even if we come back down here, previous resistance of about, you know, 163.40, we can say we could have a pullback. And then maybe back here again, the old pivot point level looking like about 159.60 maybe. So in my opinion, I'm expecting a pullback even to something like here, this pivot point 153.85. But anything can happen, of course. But RSI does seem a little overextended. And I mean, look at that straight up beeline move. I mean, again, technically, we could make the argument that the company beat earnings. However, technically, in my opinion, the company is sitting stagnant and basically said that they're going to continue to struggle. In previous guidance, right, they lowered fiscal year revenue range and EPS range. That's what I mean. And technically, people are just sweeping that underneath the rug, and they're just focusing on the hype of GTA 6, which I understand. But again, that's at least 15 months away from today's date, when potentially when it's going to get released. And if those rumors are true that it might be delayed until 2026, then in my opinion, again, the company might continue to struggle that entire time moving forward. And that's why I'm personally looking for a pullback to the 150s. But unfortunately, anything can happen. And real quick, because I know everyone loves to talk about short interest now, because the strategy has become, let's invest into dying zombie companies that screwed investors over for years and force a short squeeze so that we can make a quick return. Even though there are multiple plays out there to generate good returns. I did SLV puts the other day when it pulled back 4%. I bought them expiring yesterday, and Tuesday, I believe it was, those options were up like almost 700% because silver pulled back 4%. Then yesterday I mentioned, in my opinion, you should jump back in and buy SLV calls, and we can see that silver is up, well, was up almost 4.5% here on the day. Oil recently dropped down 5% on that OPEC news, and then Saudi Arabia comes out and says that it's really not a big deal, supposedly, and they're not worried about OPEC, and then you can see now oil making that rebound. So that's why, with the turmoil happening overseas in the Middle East, Israel, Gaza, whatnot, this is why I said that, in my opinion, oil is more than likely going to run up in value, and they brought it all the way back up to 80 a barrel, and then they chunked it down 5%, and now it's just ticking up day by day. It's climbing back 1-2% a day, and that's what I always say, that you should have, in my opinion, you should have some of these hedges in place. And if you see supposedly a long-term play taking place, if they dip it down hard, that's when you have to step in and you have to buy the dip and sell the rip. But again, if you bought, silver calls this Friday or even for next Friday, betting that it would go up a little bit, you wake up, it's up 4%, you probably made, between like 100, 200% potentially, maybe even more. And that's why, again, in my opinion, you don't really have to look for these meme stocks and these four short squeezes. Yes, they're nice and they can generate big returns, but in my opinion, you need to develop a disciplined, consistent strategy to make money consistently in this market and not just hope and pray on a short squeeze on some zombie stock, because looking at a lot of the charts of these companies that these people get trending on Reddit, technically they're fundamentally horrendous in the numbers, in my opinion, and the stock is basically in free fall until that short squeeze does eventually happen. So, it's basically a lot of stress and a lot of volatility to make potentially a couple of 100% gain, which you could basically make on almost any stock if you time yourself correctly. But the short float on TTWO, according to FinViz, I am seeing less than 5% of the float is shorted here on Take Two. And now that it potentially topped out and we looked at a lot of those technicals, now the shorts might be hitting it. And again, now it's back below the 20-day moving average. So that's why we might start seeing a pullback to the 160 and potentially the 150 level. But that's pretty much it. We can see JP Morgan adjust price target to 200 from 180, maintains overweight rating. I'm actually surprised in that, but they're entitled to their own opinion. Continuing gaming portfolio. Star Wars game. Take-Two plans to launch 16 games in 24, including a completely new game from a top-tier studio. Again, just because, not to bash it, but just because they're releasing games doesn't mean they're going to be popular. But we do know that they were struggling with, like the NBA titles that they mentioned previously in previous earnings reports. So that's why it seems like a really mixed bag. And again, I'm not trying to rain on your parade, but I do think that the recent run-up here is a little overextended. It's a little extreme, in my opinion, for just the kind of like an inline quarterly report. And we're seeing slight growth here, just a couple of 100 million potentially year over year for fiscal year 25 revenue. Take-Two supposedly only 2% market share. But we know anything can happen. Insider, Insider sold 14 million. Anything recent? PC release, GTA 6. Well, supposedly being removed here. PlayStation Plus games, extra tier members. Honestly, I don't have a PS5, so I'm not exactly sure how that would affect PlayStation gamers. Premiums that will lose access. So they're removing GTA 5 after adding Red Dead 2. Interesting. B of A upgrade to buy. To buy from neutral, raises price target to 185 from 160. Baird trims the price target from 173 to 172, maintains outperform. GTA 5, over 200 million copies sold. See, analysts remain bullish on Take-Two Interactive despite GTA 6 delay. Anticipate strong long-term growth. That's what I mean. In my opinion, long-term, it's probably going to be fine. Here in the short term, we might have these big up and down swings here from quarter to quarter. And again, technically over like the last year and a half, the stock is staying up significantly, was sub 100, and it's sitting here trying to reclaim 170, which again is a 70% move over about the last year and a half, despite beating earnings like only twice out of those 7 or 8 quarters. So, in my opinion, this is why I'm saying it could literally drop at any moment. But maintained buy at Jeffries, maintained buy at Roth. So, people know the gaming sector, chances are, will probably remain strong. People are spending a lot of hours of their days in the gaming sector. So, again, long term, I do like it, but in the short term, I just wanted to point out a couple of technicals that could potentially pull the stock back. And I'm going to end it there. So once again, to Stocks by the Numbers, I want to thank you guys for stopping by. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, drop it down in the comments section. I'm usually very quick to reply. Thumbs up algorithm helps me get more eyes on the channel. And of course, subscribe to the channel. That is our handshake agreement. That is how you help me help you. But more importantly, moving forward, like I always say, I understand that markets are rocky, they're volatile, they're very uncertain. So I want to wish all of you success. I hope everyone makes a couple of dollars. Thanks for stopping by. Have a good day.